very fun Dynasty basketball conversation ready for you today. Welcome to the Angle Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew. Big news coming in from the, you must be watching this after the Super Bowl. That's probably when we're going to be posting this. You're shifting your focus back to basketball now. We have a free Dynasty rank update available. Top 319 players ranked on our website, anglefantasybasketball.wordpress.com. But let's now get into a fun Dynasty discussion we have today. Top 20 picks in recent years. We will not be covering 2025, but in recent years, who are struggling within various situations. I'm joined by two great Dynasty minds today. First off, one of my partners at Angle, Braxton. How are you today, dude?
Really good. We're in the midst of the longest winning streak for the Charlotte Hornets since December 20th, 1999. And I'm enjoying every second of it. So, yeah, I'm doing pretty good right now.
Hornets are a fun team. I'm on the bandwagon right now for sure. I mean, especially because the Lakers are, my team can be very frustrating to watch at times, but the Hornets is just pure fun, pure vibes at the moment. It's been going really well. Also, our friend Mark C from Sports Ethos is back. How are you today, dude? Welcome back.
Well, I don't think I'm doing as good as Braxton because his Hornets beat my Rockets recently, but I like the Hornets too, so I'm enjoying the good vibes from that team. So I think all in all, we're doing all right here.
All right, very good, very good. It's a fun NBA season. All of our teams are in it, so there's gonna be some shenanigans come playoff times. That's for sure. All right, so we got some interesting names to discuss here. So let's go ahead and dive right into it right now. And I think in the spirit of us hyping up the Hornets a bit, we're going to talk about a Hornets player. This is a member of what Braxton's shirt is referencing to, the Summer League champions. Tidjane Salaun was on that team. Former top 20 pick from the 2024 draft. Let's start with your thoughts, Braxton. How has Tidjane Salaun improved? Because this is someone we wanted to include in here who was struggling, but things are looking a lot better. What are you seeing out of him?
Yeah, well, I'll say he's still a really low usage guy, and projects as a low usage guy. I think when he first came in the league, he got a lot of run early in his rookie season last year, and he appeared in 60 games, played in 20 minutes per game. Obviously, the Hornets were really bad, but his problem is that he just could not hit open shots. They were giving him open looks. He shot 33% from the field on almost 6 field goals per game, and 28% from three. And I know not a lot of people watched the Hornets last year, but a lot of those shots he's taking are wide open looks, right? So it was poor all around for Tidjane. The defense was kind of there, but there was just no offense to speak of. It was one of those where you just kind of stick him in the corner, and then if it ends up, kicking out to him, he'll take the shot and he'd still miss it, right? This year is a little bit different. He's taking, I guess I can't say higher quality looks, but the shots that he's taking are going in, right? I mean, he's shooting 51% from the field. His 3-point percentage, again, albeit on low volume, is 44% from three on just 2 3-point attempts per game. But he's looked really rejuvenated after his most recent G League stint. He didn't look great to start the season. He was in the rotation to begin the year. Was a little rough. They sent him down, and he's come back up, and he's looked pretty good since returning. He does need a little bit more seasoning. He's not ready by any means, but he doesn't look completely lost out there the way that he would some nights last year. So from a dynasty aspect, I don't necessarily. I think he's going to need to take some strides in his game. I think there's going to need to be some defensive stats. He's going to need to rebound the ball a little bit better, and he's going to need more touches. He can't just have those, that fifth option type shots. I guess he's going to need to figure out another way to put the ball in the hoop. But from a real life standpoint, there's a lot to like about Tidjane right now, and the G League is doing him wonders, allowing him to kind of expand his game beyond, catch and shoot threes, as to what he's been doing the last couple of years, or last year, I should say. So,
yeah, and I imagine the G League is better, competition for him than the lower level professional French league he was playing in before he was drafted. And, we have notable improvements here in regards to shooting percentage, both from the floor and from three, of almost 20%. In both of those categories. So, in the theme of today's episode, talking about some former top 20 picks who either were previously struggling, still are struggling, and some have some kind of refreshing situations, there's going to be some potentially tough conversations today. But we're starting off on a what's looking positive so far with Tidjane Salaun. Mark, were you in on him at all in the pre-draft process? I'm trying to remember, but how, obviously we're focusing on the right now. How are you feeling on Salaun right now?
Yeah, when I scouted Salaun, I thought he has the good tools, good measurement, but he was this ball of energy that really needed to be focused and was kind of a bit scattered with his play on the court in the French league. And we're seeing him start getting harnessed now a little bit. He is showing, I think, a bit more better know-how of where to be on the court, better know-how how to position himself on defense and actually impact play. And as Braxton mentioned, he still needs seasoning, but you are seeing him do more nice role player stuff. I don't think we're seeing shades of a future star or future starter even, but hey, to someone who can be in a rotation, be a solid piece of that rotation and give you that size, tools, and some length, and maybe some impact defense, maybe some impact rebounding down the line. I think that's what we're going to see from Salaun in maybe a few seasons in the upcoming seasons here.
I'll just kind of add on to that, Mark. I mean, there's a role for somebody like him in this on this Hornets team. You see it with Grant Williams right now. That's the exact role that they want Tidjane to have. Grant obviously is there already. He's not too old himself, right? But maybe the idea is kind of as he ages out, or maybe he becomes a little bit too expensive for the Hornets to retain. Okay, let's just slide Tidjane into that 4-5 tweener role. Not necessarily backup center. Maybe he plays a couple spot minutes here and there, but he's going to need to put some weight on as well if he's going to do that. But there is a spot for him in this rotation a year or two from now.
Very good. So maybe we can bring a little bit of a voting system to each of these players today, and we'll kind of take turn with who goes last each time as the tiebreaker. But let's, for Salaun right here, a buy in dynasty. Maybe let's just talk about this regardless of league size here. So this could factor in a deep league, 30 team, or potentially even a 12. Braxton, starting with you, is Tidjane Salaun a buy, a strong hold right now if you still have him, or are you not interested in him in dynasty?
So I know you said not to really talk about league depth, but I have a hard time imagining he's I wouldn't say, I doubt he's rostered in most dynasty leagues. So with that in mind, he's somebody I would probably grab off the waiver wire. So that's not necessarily a buy. There's not a lot of guys I would trade for him. I don't mind throwing a late draft pick for him. But the interesting flyer, I guess I should say. So it doesn't really fit necessarily in the buy category, but
Mark, same question to you.
I mean, it's hard to say buy when I don't maybe see this great fantasy ceiling, but if you need this rotation piece and you're just looking to build up the depth of your squad a little bit, then he's a buy in that sense.
Trending up for sure.
I'm incorporating my my light that I've got behind me in my studio lately. We're going with the yellow light as a strong hold right now for Tidjane Salaun. We got more color options coming up here. We're going to discuss some various situations. Now let's go in a different direction here. We're going to go to my team, the Los Angeles Lakers. Dalton Knecht, also a 2024 draft pick, arguably did a little bit, or probably quite a bit better in his rookie year compared to now. So there was a little bit of momentum as just kind of a scoring spark plug off the bench. But really, ever since the trade saga, the botched trade with Mark Williams, I've seen zero confidence out of Knecht whatsoever. Obviously, the flaws that people pointed out in the pre-draft process are there, specifically on the defensive side. Huge liability on defense. So to the point where, at least within JJ Redick's rotation, he's been quite unplayable. He wanted to get traded. It didn't happen, so he is still on the Lakers at this moment in time. And then the Lakers waived their other, 17th overall pick, Jalen Hood-Schifino. Could that possibly be in Dalton Knecht's future? Let's move to you first, Mark. Is there any hope in a dynasty landscape for Dalton Knecht at this point in time?
I mean, it looks pretty dim, doesn't it? I mean, I remember I said as soon as Dalton Knecht was drafted at the 2024 draft that he would be the most obvious buy high sell high 2 months into the season. Lo and behold, middle of November, early December 24, people are like, oh, this is the steal of the draft. Everyone else was crazy. He fades off. Now he's not even in the rotation. Yeah, I mean, as you pretty much laid it out, he's still making shots okay, but not anything special. And then he's not giving anything else on the court. So he just doesn't fit in the rotation for his player type. And it doesn't feel like that's likely to change. I just don't see what there is from a fantasy perspective to buy into here. Because even if he does see a low teens role, even then you're just getting some splash of threes, maybe some points, and that's it. You're not going to get anything else from Knecht. He's not going to help you defensively, not going to really help you on the boards. He's not going to give you those passing stats. So it's just not, regardless of his play on the court, it just isn't any statistical stuff that's really that interesting with Knecht.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, there needs to be tough conversations today. Braxton, Dalton Knecht, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's over. He has to be, his peak is Corey Kispert, and he cannot hit shots the way Corey Kispert can. He can't play defense the way that Corey Kispert can. He's not even that good, right? The main piece of the Trae Young trade.
What a phrase there. He can't play defense like Corey Kispert can.
But what does that tell you, though? Like, he can't.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
There was times earlier in this season for the Lakers where he's getting, 0 minutes a night when they're banged up. If you can't, there was nights where he wasn't seeing the floor, and it's like, how is this guy not seeing the floor?
And they're playing Nick Smith Jr. instead.
Unbelievable. They signed this guy off the street over their first-round pick. I think Dalton Knecht is destined to be a guy that gets traded at the deadline and then waived by his new team. And this is particularly topical, just at the deadline. We saw this happen with just today with Dalen Terry and Hunter Tyson after sticking with their two teams for 3 or 4 years and then getting traded for nothing and waived. I think that, and those guys are going to be out of the league. I mean, those guys might be in two-way hell for the next couple of years, or 10-day contract hell. Jeremiah Robinson Earl. What's another one? Charles Bassey, like those kind of guys who are just hanging around on 10 days for 3-4 years, but like
Skal Labissiere.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit. That's it. We can talk.
They're
about
in Skal territory. We'll call it that. It's Skal territory. Yeah.
That I'm glad you pulled that one up because he kind of came out of nowhere. I was really excited to see. But, I think that's his destiny. I think he's got no value. He had no fantasy value even when he was playing. It's purely just threes. He had no upside. And the Lakers trading for Luke Kennard is a death sentence for him. So,
yeah. Well, I don't think I need to pose the question to you two. It looks like there's no dynasty interest. So, the red light of shame. I look like a Sith Lord now. Look at this. Look how negative this room looks right now. So, we have the red light of shame. First appearance today for Dalton Knecht. All right. Let's move into a different direction. Let's move to somebody who did get traded at the trade deadline. Previous to this trade, it was not looking great for Taylor Hendricks. He now finds himself in Memphis with a pretty depleted front court at the moment. Jaren Jackson Jr. is gone. Zach Edey is still hurt. Brandon Clark is forever hurt. And Jock Landale's not there anymore either. Let's start with you on this one, Braxton. Do you like this new situation for Taylor Hendricks?
Only because this might be his last chance. He was really falling out of favor in Utah, which is hard to do. They really wanted him to be a solid piece for him, but he was just getting outplayed at every turn. Even Cody Williams, who I think is the worst player in the league, was outplaying Hendricks on some nights. They sent Hendricks down to the G League at one point this year. He should not have been getting sent down to G League. Like, he should have been running away with this job. Now, I know he lost an entire practically last year after, what was it, a broken leg? Or an ankle, either one.
It was bad, something like that. Yeah, something
he was broken leg. Mm-hmm.
He was, trending up in his first year. He kind of had that Robert Covington type fantasy skill set where it's like, okay, this guy might have 1-1-1. He's shooting threes, he's blocking shots, he's stealing the ball. Not really anything else. But and then the injury, and then this year, he was supposed to bounce back, and there was a lot of hype on him coming into the season. And he's just been bad. I especially early on in the season, this guy would go out, he'd play 20 minutes, he'd go 0 for 5 with 4 boards. And I think he literally had that stat line like 4 or 5 times within the first 10 games. Like, I'm not exaggerating. So he's just not hitting his shots. But with that being said, he will play in Memphis. They don't have size. And maybe a change of scenery is going to be good for him. So could be someone that's trending up. He's just it's up to him to the tools are there. But if you strike out on one tanking team, it's looking bleak for you. So it's not very often you get a second chance on a tanking team to play.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And he is fortunate to have found himself in this situation instead of like going to like I don't know if he like goes to like Boston and sits on the end of their bench, or like Brooklyn just kept accumulating people and then waiving them. I don't think they would have waived Hendricks, but there was a lot of other people that did get waived because they just have so many guys on that roster. But like with Hendricks' situation, what's tempting about like the concept of what we're discussing today, like is he maybe a buy in dynasty right now or a hold, is this concept of, we're coming into fantasy playoffs and this might be somebody who has a big impact in, silly season, which obviously coincides so heavily with fantasy basketball playoff success, finding those guys on these tankers who are going to get heavy minutes, or you're just pulling value out of thin air, especially if you're like in a 12-team league, you picked up Taylor Hendricks and the Grizzlies give him 30 minutes a night. That could make a big difference. Mark, for Hendricks, and let's say Memphis does give him this, big role as they're trying to see kind of what they got here in their return for their former star, Jaren Jackson. Is Hendricks of somebody of interest to you right now?
I mean, kind of, but I think Braxton pretty much nailed this one on the head here. Like, he had chances in Utah. It's not like he was buried behind others in Utah. They wanted to give him chances, and he wasn't performing. Yes, he had that broken leg injury. I want to give some credence to that. That's a pretty major injury to try to come back from. But it was at the beginning of the 24-25 season. You would have thought, okay, I mean, once you get a couple games ramped up, you get back used to it, you would show something, and that theme's going to come up with a different player, I think, later on. But I would think at this point we can kind of say, yeah, he's just not performing. And I don't even know if Memphis is that much better of a situation, because you do have Santi Aldama there, you have Cedric Coward there on the wings and forwards, and then I don't know if they're going to give Gigi Jackson a shot. I'm not really a Gigi Jackson person anyways, but I mean, is it going to be Gigi Jackson or Taylor Hendricks getting that? It's probably going to be, okay, you both show us what you can do. I don't even know if he's going to be this silly season guy. And he hasn't performed to date, ultimately. That's kind of what this boils down to. And I don't think a change in scenery is really, the jump start he needed to get it. I'm hoping it is. I hope he was fun his rookie season in those moments, but
I'll say a positive for him is the skill set, the fantasy outlook or potential is obvious, more obvious than some of the other guys we're going to talk about, right? We know exactly what he needs to do. He literally just needs to go out and do what he's done before to be fantasy viable, right? With some of these other guys, it's like, okay, where is the stats going to come from? But with him, if he goes out and starts nailing shots and stealing, one steal a game, one block a game, it's like, okay, this guy's back in consideration for a legitimate fantasy asset. So I just want to add that there.
Yeah, if he does good, then then he'll be good. But if he does bad, as he's been doing, then he's not good. So it's kind of,
that's a great way to put it. I mean, good player does good things. Bad player, not worth much.
Yeah.
So I'll start us off here. I'm going to put him at a strong hold, potentially a speculative buy, but proceed with caution. If this is like a buy low, like if you're able to get him at kind of like a buy low price, I'm fine with that. Let's go to you next, Braxton. Potential. Are you have an interest in acquiring Hendricks anywhere? A strong hold if you already have him, or no interest?
I do. I think there's not many flyers you can take this late in the season at the price you can get Hendricks at, with the kind of the payoff, I guess, outweighs any potential risk you would take on by acquiring him. It's not going to cost very much. Might be on waivers in a lot of leagues, right? Maybe not. He's kind of got that name value. There's this aura around him. He doesn't have aura. Yeah. But there's this aura around him of fantasy value. He's dripping with fantasy value. And so anyways, I do like grabbing him and seeing what happens in Memphis.
How about you, Mark? Let's see you as the tiebreaker here. It looks like there was a little bit of interest in a buy, but let's see where you're at.
I think I'm going to actually make this more complicated because, as Braxton mentioned, he does have the fantasy aura, and I think people may be getting into like, oh, now's the time to get in on him. If someone comes calling for him and is offering maybe a little bit of inflated price, I'd be willing to sell him. If not, hold. Unless it's like okay, this is a good return to just hold. But I think there could be a small little sell high, I think, for Taylor Hendricks right now.
That's a great point. There might not be another window for selling. So.
Yeah, that's true. Obviously, other than his rookie year, the window kind of has reappeared now. So I think we're gonna have to just keep him. I think we're gonna have to keep him in the hold territory for now. I don't know if I'm gonna give him the green light quite yet. Maybe there's somebody else here because we're kind of, I don't want to say scraping the bottom of the barrel with the list that we're talking about today, but maybe. But maybe there is a buy on this list. There probably is going to be at least one, but Hendricks is if you already have him, stronghold, as Mark said, even at potentially a sell high, because he does have the name value still that Brax said. And then this is just, the selling window is open. So if you are looking to buy, please proceed with caution. But Hendricks is definitely of interest to all of us. Okay. Now let's look at another name here. Let's go to somebody now who did not get moved at the trade deadline and wanted to be moved. Another forward who does potentially have a fantasy-friendly game. Jeremy Sochan. He wanted out of the Spurs, didn't get out, and he is not really a part of their rotation at the moment. The point guard Sochan experiment failed, but it is surprising to see that there's not even just like a role as like a backup, wing depth or really not the backup center role is not there anymore because Cornette's, in my opinion, doing a really good job with it. So not really a home for Jeremy Sochan at the moment. And there really was some big believers out there for Sochan in Dynasty from that perspective, because he does, provide those those rebounds and then some out of position assists. So you're kind of thinking of him as one of those pass, dribble, shoot type of players. And that does have its appeal, but the situation is tough. Let's go to you first, Mark, our resident over in Texas. So this one's a little closer for you here. Sochan, what are your thoughts on him?
I mean, he hasn't looked bad this season when he's gotten minutes, but it's been in a 9th or 10th man role pretty much. And it's for a reason, because I think his finishing around the basket has improved. I think that is a positive. And I think he doesn't really do that much else. He was billed as this defensive playmaker, kind of havoc creation type coming out of Baylor. And we haven't really seen that at the NBA level. The passing is kind of complementary, but I wouldn't say he unlocks any players. And then the creation just isn't there. The shooting is still this weird motion that's never really developed. It's not, no one's like, oh, we got to go guard Jeremy Sochan out on the line. It's more, yeah, we can let him shoot, or he's slow enough that we can really get to him in time. So I'm not really sure what Jeremy Sochan's providing a team, except this all right, nice forward size, body, at the 4, can soak up some minutes there in a backup capacity. But I think there's a reason no one really even came calling us a flyer, because I just don't see really the juice with Jeremy Sochan. And I think we have a bit, he could pop off in another location, but I think we have enough of a track record, and the declining minutes on a team that's on the rise kind of says some volumes for a young player who maybe is now not a core of this team. Clearly not a core member of this team going forward.
Very good. Very good points. Let's head over to you, Braxton. I know you've owned Sochan a couple of times in Dynasty in the past. I don't think you own him any longer, but so you've seen some appeal prior. Where are you at right now with Sochan?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be able to rehab his value at some point on a bad team. I don't think he's ever going to be a legitimate rotation player on a good team at this point. Something that I don't think is talked about enough, though, is when the point Sochan experiment kind of ended, obviously the assists drop a little bit, which, by the way, we're not even that high to begin with. Only at 3.4 was his career high on a season. But he stopped shooting nearly as many three-pointers. The three-point percentage stayed exactly the same, but he went down from 3 attempts to almost 1.5 attempt per game. Okay. And it did improve his field goal percentage, but he remains when in the lineup, quite a harmful player in 9 category leagues. The turnovers are kind of high. The free throw is bad. The percentages are not great night to night. He's kind of one of those guys where it's like, what is he doing for you? The assists really aren't there. There's some points, some boards, and this is at peak. The defensive stats really aren't there. So I think the idea of Sochan was always a lot more appealing than what he actually ended up turning out to be. On a night-to-night basis, he had some interesting upside in his second year, which is 2 years ago now. But on the season, even then, he just did not rank very highly in terms of 9 category, and the impact was not there to offset some of his deficiencies in 9 category ranking. And now that he's found himself outside the rotation, it's just because the Spurs are good, right? I can definitely see him getting moved or maybe signing with a. I think he's a restricted free agent after the season. Maybe signing with a bad team, or maybe the Spurs don't even extend a qualifying offer.
Right.
to where, okay, he's going to play, on a tanking team. There's definitely enough there for a team to take a swing on him. And at that point, I think there is some value there. So this is definitely the lowest I think his value is going to be for a while. But I don't, even if he does move to a team that allows for him to have a better role, I just don't think the upside is going to be there, especially with how he's kind of changing his game to be less harmful on the court in real life. As he does that, it makes him less exciting as a fantasy asset. So.
Yeah, and then he had, like I said, there's a lot of strong believers in Sochan out there in the dynasty community, and I'm sure it's tough for them to continue to see Harrison Barnes start almost every game, or at the least play a ton of every single game, because he is playing in the spot that Sochan should be in. Obviously, I'm not going to bring up Julian Champagne here because I think we all three could agree he's clearly a lot better than Sochan, and clearly the best fit as a starter or one of the key players, key forwards for this Spurs team. Champagne's really good. But the fact that he's not beating Harrison Barnes for the other spot in that forward rotation, or Keldon Johnson either, is definitely a cause for concern. So let's get your vote first, Mark. Jeremy Sochan, any potential interest in buying him? Maybe once he's away from the Spurs, a hold if you've got him right now, or you just not really interested in him regardless of what happens?
I mean, maybe he's a buy just in the sense that his value, I can't see his manager asking for too much now, just because his value, as Braxton said, is low and it doesn't seem like it's going to go any higher. This kind of makes him it's kind of, I guess, a hold unless you just get him for really cheap. But I mean, when we compared it to Tidjane Salaun earlier, I can see Tidjane Salaun fitting into like getting to the 20s in minutes and staying there. I don't know if that's in Sochan's future. So he's kind of I'm trying to think of the other way. We did trending downward. Let's go there. Trending downward player. However you want to interpret it out there in the fantasy landscape.
Right. I mean, if you're selling Sochan, like if you're a competitive team, and obviously you do have Sochan's age on your side in the dynasty landscape. So what if someone's just like, wants to give you a low end veteran? Someone's going to send you Chris Dunn for Jeremy Sochan. Obviously, if you're still a big believer in Sochan, you prefer to keep him, that's fine. But if you're, either fighting to make playoffs, or like maybe you're a top 3 seed, Sochan's not helping me right now, and I kind of have a spot in my rotation. Darius Garland still isn't playing. Maybe Chris Dunn kind of gets or not really prioritized, but he just plays a ton for the Clippers anyways. He's kind of one of their more reliable players. This is just an example of, maybe someone will give you
that's a good one.
Kind of a low end veteran for him, someone who's a good amount older than him. So you do have his age on your side. So maybe a hold right now just to see if they're, like I said, there is people who are high on Sochan. So you might get a little something out of him, or you can wait to see if he leaves the Spurs. Where are you at, Brax?
Well, something that I think is interesting about the example you gave, like a Chris Dunn for Jeremy Sochan. In shallower leagues, Sochan is more valuable on your bench as a flyer than taking on a low-end veteran like that. Whereas, like, if you're in a deeper league and you need that production more desperately, it can make a lot more sense to sell for somebody like that. Let's see. I guess I think if you have Sochan, like Sochan's entire value right now is coming from name value, just kind of his perceived upside. As I talked about a little bit earlier, I don't think that upside is even real to begin with. So if you're going to sell, I think you have to come to terms with not getting his full value. You should be able to leverage that name value a little bit still. But I don't think it's somebody I'd be targeting in a trade. I don't think he's trending up or anything like that. And Andrew, for all the things you said about Harrison Barnes, I don't know if you guys know this. Up until a week ago, Harrison Barnes had not come off the bench since 2015. He had started every game since 2015 up until like a week ago when they started Champagne over him. So for all Barnes' downfalls, nobody's taken him out of a rotation. So.
Hey, Harrison Barnes or Jeremy Sochan, which side's there?
There's right. Like, let's say a prospect's getting drafted, his NBA comparison is Harrison Barnes. That might be that actually might be interesting. Someone who's had a really long career. It hasn't been anything super flashy, but he's been in NBA lineups and starting lineups for quite an amount of time. So that is a good point to bring up. So we're gonna put Sochan probably in the hold category for now. Not a real ton of interest, at least for us buying him. I know a lot of the context our teams are in. Sochan's probably not somebody of much interest to us. If you're in a shallower league, like Braxton said, you might as well just let him, take up one of your bench spots. Usually these shallower leagues, like on Sleeper or something, have pretty big benches anyways. But not someone where we're like, sell him as soon as you can, or, he's still in wait and see territory. But maybe if we have this conversation same time again next year, perhaps the red light of shame is in question for that one. We'll see. We'll see if things get better for him. Okay, so let's switch now. Let's see here. We still have some guys that have been traded and guys who haven't been traded. Let's go now back to the 2024 draft. This is a guy who has really been struggling to carve out a role of any kind. He did come into the NBA injured, but his team's in a situation where they should hopefully be trying to tank as much as they can. They got a lot of veterans on the Sacramento Kings, and it puts Devin Carter in a precarious situation because a lot of us really did like him in the pre-draft process. He was, one of those workhorse guys, kind of labeled as like almost like a Josh Hart type of stat set, which of course for 9 category, that's very, very intriguing to us. The issues though with Carter, I mean, aside from coming into the NBA injured, is just the ability to crack the rotation has not been there until Sacramento is now getting to the point of tanking it. Now we recently saw DeRozan, Levine, and them play under 25 minutes, and Devin Carter, Nick Clifford's playing time go up a bit. And we saw Nick Clifford, have probably a little bit of momentum early in his career than Devin Carter did. So this is one of the tougher ones I would say we're going to be discussing today, because it's all obviously about like the opportunity and where the situation is for him right now. But let's go to you first, Braxton. Where are you at right now on Devin Carter?
I mean, obviously this Dennis Schroeder, DeAndre Hunter deal was so huge for him. In terms of shipping out a guard and then bringing in no guards, it really opened up.
Getting rid of Keon.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And what ended up happening as a result is Precious Achiuwa was the one that was on the outside looking in from the rotation in the Kings' most recent game. Devin Carter entered, played about 25 minutes. DeAndre Hunter, obviously a part of the rotation now. It's much more even rotation. It's not so guard heavy. Prior to that, now if you asked me earlier in the season, I think I would have said Devin Carter's on the cusp of being waived. He's been really bad. He's looked really bad. It hasn't really shown a lot. I mean, there's some energy there, but like they've given him some chances, and he just really has not played to the level I think they were expecting out of him. Kind of the idea with Devin Carter too is that when he was drafted, is that okay? This guy's gonna be NBA ready. He's gonna be ready to contribute now. He's got you mentioned Josh Hart. He's a rebounding guard. There really aren't gonna be a ton of assists there, but maybe he'll score enough. Maybe he'll grab enough rebounds and maybe knock down a 3 and steal a ball to be fantasy relevant. Hasn't really done any of that, honestly. He's almost one of those guys that kind of just runs around out there, and that's the worst kind of guy you want to have in a fantasy league. Carter's going to need to make some improvements to his game. He's going to need to distribute the ball more, which is not even who he is as a player, but he's going to have to figure out something to increase his fantasy value, because I don't know if. I mean, maybe if the Kings completely blow it up and all the veterans are gone next year, that, okay, maybe he gets a large role, but I don't even know if a 24-minute per night role is in his future on a really bad Kings team. This is going to be his audition to finish the season. And if he doesn't play well, I think he might not be on the team coming in next year.
So I guess, this is really only one game in his defense. When the uptick in minutes happened, his most recent performance on the 4th, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, and a block. Not bad. He did go 0 for 6 from downtown, however. So he shot 5 for 12 on the day. Not great, 41%. But you did see an okay stat line there. But this is one game we're talking about. There really hasn't been much to go off of.
Hang the banner. Hang the banner. Hang the banner.
Yes, light the beam, actually, in this case. Let's go to you next, Mark. Where are you at with Devin Carter right now?
I can't make a statistical case for him, which hurts me. I was a huge Devin Carter fan in that 24 draft cycle, and mixture of injuries, mixture of the Kings being the Kings. I think that's enough said there. He hasn't gotten any minutes, and he hasn't earned them, I think, frankly. I can't make a statistical case for Devin Carter. The case I'll make here a little bit is that the Kings are the Kings. I think we've seen the moves they've made the past year and a half, 2 seasons, and they've been bad after bad after bad after bad after bad. this Hunter Schroeder business was awful. Getting in all these guards, sidelining Malik Monk, doing all this stuff has just been nonsensical. So if the Kings are saying, "Hey, we're not playing this player," maybe that means they're good. I half joke with that, but if Carter can somehow get to another team, the Kings just trade him away, kind of in not a dump, but maybe get like some second on him, and another team takes a chance on him. I think that's the hope here, and I'm hoping that another organization that is better than the Kings can maybe do something with him. I'll make that case, but there is not really a statistical case right now for Devin Carter, unfortunately.
And Carter hasn't even been good in the G League. I mean, he's taking 20 shots a game in the G League. He's averaging 23, 8 and almost 4 assists per game, but he's got an astronomical 29% usage rate. So he's just clearly one of the better players on the court, which is notable, but he's probably gonna be one of those that might be who he is, somebody who's good for the G League and not good for the NBA. His true shooting percentage is not very good at 54%. And he's not even getting the assists that you'd want to see or defensive stats in the G League. And so if he's not doing that at G League, how is it going to translate to the NBA? So just completely agree with you, Mark, there. I don't know if there's a statistical argument there for him.
So I'm going to start us off on this one, potentially controversially. I don't really have interest in Devin Carter in a dynasty setting. I did pre-draft. And obviously coming from the 2024 draft, you could argue, of course, that there is a case for giving him a little bit of time. He is, he was on the older side. He wasn't like a true freshman drafted, but so there, I of course will admit there is a little bit of time. And to Mark's point, perhaps outside of Sacramento would be a great, a much better resolution. But I'm going to go with my vote of not much interest. Let's go to you next, Mark. Where are you at with Carter? Potential buy or buy low? At least a hold? Not interested?
I'm going to try to speak this one into existence. I traded for Devin Carter in one of my dynasty leagues in the offseason. That has not gone fully to plan. Slam that buy button. Slam it. Buy Devin Carter. This is as low as it can get. It can only go up from here. Devin Carter stock's to the moon right now. Buy him. Buy him. We're speaking it into existence. My non-biased take is, if you can buy him for a late second or something, sure. But otherwise, yeah, that's trending downward. I feel like is the appropriate take here. Sadly,
I don't even think he's worth that. I mean, I think you can take that late second. And Mark, I'm assuming you mean like in a late second in a 30-team league, as opposed to
like a more like a pick in the 40s, I guess. Relatively.
Yeah. So, pick towards the end of the draft for somebody who's in a shallow league. But even then, I probably would rather take the flyer, or there's plenty of guys who are probably on waivers that I would rather have over Devin Carter. You maybe look at somebody like AJ Johnson, who just got traded to Dallas, who is probably on waivers in almost every league, who is someone who I think has more upside and maybe better outlook than Devin Carter. He's a waste of a roster spot, in my opinion.
I mean, obviously, this is what I voted for in the beginning, but I don't know why I'm still surprised that it came to the red light of shame for Devin Carter. But unfortunately, that's where he's at right now. Like I said, we're going to have some tough conversations today. The Devin Carter one is tough. There's probably still some believers out there, but none in this current video at the moment.
Andrew,
okay.
Hey, there's one.
Go ahead. I know.
I'm a mini believer.
Andrew, let's do one that you like, because we've talked really bad about like 4 in a row now.
There's been some holds. Taylor Hendricks has been a pretty strong hold. Who else has been a pretty strong? Taylor Hendricks, actually. Okay. All right. Let's talk. I've been saving this one because this is going to be probably the most positive one of today. This is someone who did get moved at the deadline, and I think we can all agree that we really like the spot. Bennedict Mathurin is now on the LA Clippers. Now, in the title of this video, podcast, and everything, it's about, struggling former top 20 picks. And you're like, well, Bennedict Mathurin's been playing a ton. This is obviously way different than Devin Carter, Dalton Knecht, Jeremy Sochan. And you're right. It is. However, Mathurin is at the point, being a 2022 draft pick, where the Pacers did need to extend some type of qualifying offer out to him or extend him. His rookie deal was about to end. They never did that, even after him looking pretty good in the finals last year, or like during their playoff run last year. They didn't do it this year either, even with him as kind of one of the main, at least offensive options with Halliburton gone. And now they traded him to the Clippers. So the Clippers in a full reset now, despite not owning their draft pick, doing a little bit of draft terrorism here, just kind of letting OKC get whatever they want. But I understand it from the Clippers' perspective of it's like, we brought a bunch of young talent. Let's kind of see what we got here. So with James Harden out the door, Ivica Zubac out the door, I mean, we're looking at the main offensive trio of Darius Garland, Bennedict Mathurin, and Kawhi Leonard. Because the Clippers have a lot of just, other good supportive role players, Derek Jones Jr., Chris Dunn. They do have John Collins as well, actually. Maybe I should mention him as one of the other primary offensive options. But, the Clippers are going for more of a young look here. And I'm with it just because, the Lakers always have veterans, are always competing. It's nice to have kind of a young team in LA. I'm just saying that as, a local here. Obviously, this probably doesn't reign true for, like, let's say you two who don't even live in California. So for me, selfishly, I kind of like that. But, in this situation of a rebuild, let's go to you first, Mark. How do you like this situation now for Bennedict Mathurin in LA with the Clippers?
You mentioned Mathurin with the Pacers. The Pacers chose not to extend him, and he's be entering restricted free agency. And I think with just the way the Pacers will never spend over the tax and the way their salaries were set up, he was never likely to be an option there. Would have hit restricted free agency. That always gets tricky for players. Now, getting moved to the Clippers, he was definitely had to be a decent part of that value. Not maybe not a huge part, but definitely part of the value for Ivica Zubac in that return for the Clippers. And I'm not saying I think he's going to become suddenly an amazing defender or an amazing passer or an amazing three-point shooter. But now he has a clear path to, I think, close to starter level minutes in the future. I would think the Clippers re-sign him at some reasonable deal, and he's on that team in a role that to suit him. Maybe kind of that mini Norm Powell role, driving downhill. Hey, you know what? You just get buckets. We'll have other players that handle kind of the defensive duties or the playmaking duties and such. And hey, you know what? A clear role that's in the mid-20s in minutes, maybe approaching the low 30s in minutes, is a much better outlook than what you had previously with Bennedict Mathurin. I don't think the stat set's going to change here, but the opportunity definitely has. So one of the bigger young player winners from this trade deadline for sure.
How do you feel about old Eggs Benny's new situation, Brax?
I think this is huge for him. And if you're an owner, it's something I'd be really excited about. The Pacers now have, if there's ever been an incentive to tank, it's this 1 through 4, 10 through 30 protection. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I didn't know that was a thing until this trade.
I didn't know you could have gaps like that.
Right. Yeah.
But the Clippers are actually, despite Andrew, your thought that maybe OKC is going to get a top pick, they're probably good for the play-in. I think it's pretty abysmal after 10 in the West. And I think Mathurin's going to be a big part of that. So if he does take a slight hit in usage, I think the reliability of knowing he's going to be out there when he can is going to outweigh any of that. And he did see a slight increase in production this year without Halliburton, but as kind of like that tertiary option last year, we saw him still. He only averaged 2 points less. All the other stats are about the same. He actually shot better from the field last year. So it depends if you value the extra 2 points or the 46 versus 43 field goal percentage. But so I wouldn't be concerned. If anybody is concerned, I think this is a good long-term move for Mathurin, especially if the Clippers do extend him a nice deal. And I don't think that he's going to be nearly as much of a risk to rest for the remainder of the year. And I think, if he takes some leaps in his game, maybe not from a fantasy perspective, but maybe he becomes a pretty integral part to this new look of Clippers team. And that really drives home or solidifies, rather, I should say, his role on a competitive team. I don't want to say good team, but this could be good for him. So I'm liking Mathurin. Now I will say I've never really liked him in fantasy, but if it's not worse than it was before, it's better. So
let's keep it with you, Braxton. Are you interested in acquiring Bennedict Mathurin in Dynasty right now, or still any type of hesitancy in there?
Honestly, his price might be higher now than ever. He's gonna have as many shots as he wants. Garland's still banged up. They have a big hole in usage. I know Garland's not going to take all of that Harden usage. Zubac is going to. There's kind of a hole there. Isaiah Jackson's not going to take nearly as many shots. Not that Bennedict Mathurin's going to be getting, pick and roll opportunities. But I don't know. I think if people are concerned about the tank, he's somebody I would look to grab. But I wouldn't let somebody kind of hold this over your head and be like, oh, look, his value is so high now. I wouldn't pay out of my mind for him. I would say his fantasy value long term is probably pretty similar as to what if he stayed in Indiana.
Where are you at right now with Mathurin? Mark, is someone that interests you to, maybe get on your dynasty team, of course, at a reasonable price, or any hesitancy in there on your end?
Yeah, reasonable price is the key phrase there. And I love that you mentioned that, Braxton, because now it's like, oh, Mathurin stocks up. Well, okay, now it's maybe a little too much. And now the Mathurin manager may have a little bit too much inflated value of him. In terms of just his individual dynasty stock, I think that's definitely up. Personally, I kind of disagree with you a little bit there, Braxton. I think the dynasty outlook is a little higher because you get those, I think, that more reliable minutes than what he had previously. But in a trade, it just depends if that Mathurin manager is maybe giving a little bit too much value to Mathurin now. As someone who was asking about some other players in the trade and had Mathurin involved, didn't even get a counter on that offer. So that may tell you what you need to know, that it may be hard to trade for Mathurin now, but as just an individual dynasty player under vacuum, definitely had it, I think, in a more positive direction than previously.
Yeah. So I'm not going to fault him in regards to our final verdict here. I'm not going to fault him in regards to being like, oh, his value is too high now. I think the fact of the names that we're talking about today, anybody in this conversation of, oh, his value is higher right now, it's too high right now, it's kind of like at the highest it's ever been right now, should be putting Mathurin as our first green light of the day. Mathurin is our probably our big positive of today of what we've discussed so far. So definitely interest from a dynasty perspective. I'm with you, Mark, in that I do think the dynasty value does go up a bit on this Clippers team. So the outlook, everything's looking really good there for Bennedict Mathurin. Excuse me. All right, we got 3 more that we are going to cover here. And we're keeping these ones pretty. 2 of them, I think, should be positive. I don't know. There's still some tough conversations to be had. But for this next one, we're gonna keep it in, I think, a positive light, just because this team, everything they touches turns to gold. And the level of TikTok value that we get out of Jared McCain, Jalen Williams, and J-Dub being on the same team, they're going to be there's going to be some some real funny scenes, I'm sure, coming out of that locker room pretty soon. But that's our next player to discuss, is Jared McCain, who Daryl Morey was very recently bragging about that he sold high on. So obviously Oklahoma City is very good. Obviously Oklahoma City has a crowded guard room. Shea, J-Dub, AJ Mitchell, Kason Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe. There's a lot to compete with there. But Jared McCain is a good shooter. Jared McCain is a good player. And I obviously love him just under the tutelage of OKC, the staff that they have there, Mark Daigneault. And I think this is definitely a locker room, as I alluded to earlier, that he's going to vibe with very well. So vibes are high, but how much does that apply, of course, to dynasty and fantasy value? Mark, where are you at right now with Jared McCain?
I've constantly said if the Thunder have one weakness, it's that they don't necessarily have a lot of self-creation on the roster. And we've seen that this season where their offense does kind of bog down, or it's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, save us, please, save us. We can't create anything on offense. And he usually does. Now bringing in Jared McCain, and that was really the one thing that made him amazing for that 2-week month stretch, his rookie season, before going down with that injury. The thing is, we haven't seen that same level of self-creation this season. And at least for me, it's brought in the question, well, was that rookie season more just a little bit of a really hot streak for him? Or is this more than real Jared McCain? Or where's his true talent level? And I kind of lied. It's kind of a bit in the middle of what we've seen so far from the date. Just kind of take the averages. And that means I think he's a capable shooter, can do a little bit of self-creation here and there. But it isn't the most appealing stat set. That said, I think there is a role in OKC still for that sort of shooter, that sort of player who can bring the ball to court a little bit. I honestly think y'all's guy, AJ Mitchell, is better in terms of that self-creation aspect. Jared McCain will provide more of that shooting aspect. So I'm not sure if the minutes are fully there. Definitely don't think the stat set's there. So as much as I do kind of like this gamble by the Thunder, I don't know if it's going to translate to great fantasy or dynasty success for Jared McCain at the end of the day.
It's like one situation I'll pose to you is like, obviously, someone like you mentioned too, AJ Mitchell. Maybe there is some limitation to the creation. He is somebody though who does offer a bit on the defensive end, like from a steals output, let's say in fantasy perspective, and then just real life value, pretty good defender. That's something that we were definitely aware of when scouting him. And I would argue that Aaron Wiggins is pretty good at defending too and good at scoring, but like I'm trying to maybe zero in here on Isaiah Joe. Like, what does Isaiah Joe offer outside of just 3-point shooting? And so if you add that extra element of creation that Jared McCain has, Isaiah Joe does play some decent minutes. So what if he's absorbed into Isaiah Joe's role potentially? With that said, Brax, Jared McCain.
Yeah, I don't think McCain is ever going to get back to the highs of his peak in Philadelphia in terms of dynasty value. I think we had him just outside the top 100 at one point, like 105 or 106 on one of our dynasty rankings.
Sounds right.
I don't think he's going to get back there. But if this is what Morey considers to be selling high, I mean, how low must he value Jared McCain? I mean, it's unbelievable. He's barely been playing all season and not that well. Now, I will say, if you're a Jared McCain owner, I mean, this might be best case scenario outside of him going to a bad team. But in terms of long-term value, this might be maybe not what you expected, but this could be really good for him. Mark Daigneault does such a great job at crafting these rotations so that, 12 guys, even 13 guys are playing pretty consistently, not every night, right? But they're so cautious with their players, and the way that they'll rest guys, like they'll rest. I know Shea is injured right now, but he'll rest one night, or Caruso, who might not even exist anymore at this point. These guys, I don't know, just the way that the rotations are crafted, where he's able to find 18 to 20 minutes for so many players on a pretty consistent basis, I think is going to be so huge for Jared McCain. And you mentioned Isaiah Joe. Daigneault is not afraid to go 12 deep on any given night, right? So maybe he pulls a couple minutes from Isaiah Joe. Maybe he pulls a couple minutes from Casey Wallace, a couple from Caruso if he's back in the lineup, right? There you go. That's 15, 16 minutes for McCain right there. That's a more consistent role than he had in Philadelphia. And then on nights where the Thunder, they do these big batches of resting players, maybe McCain isn't one of those guys. Maybe McCain that's a night where he pops off like Jalen Williams, the center, not the forward. Whenever they rest all these guys, he and Brandon Carlson have the games of their lives. And I think Jared McCain could kind of fall into that category, right? Kind of a really not high floor, but very consistent floor. And then has the nights where he can pop off, not on a fully healthy team, but just based on how OKC structures their lineups and how they treat and I guess protect their players from injury. So that is kind of an aspect I don't think a lot of people are considering. You're just looking at this really crowded OKC team, like, oh, they're good. McCain couldn't crack the rotation in Philly. He can't crack the rotation in OKC, but it's a much different situation. So I don't think the floor is not there, but long term, or I should say, sorry, his peak is not going to be what you thought it was, but this is going to help him carve a role long term that he didn't have if he stayed in Philly.
I'm gonna counter Braxton here because you mentioned, what if McCain has it going and he sees more minutes? Well, what if he doesn't have it going that night and then he sees less minutes? I don't know if the floor is there because they have so many guys in different configurations they could try out on any given night. So I think it goes both ways there on that point.
Sure. I don't know if I have a counter. I mean, that's a great counter to my counter, but I look at him. I think he'll fall in terms of fantasy value, very in line with similar, or I guess I should say similar to how you value Aaron Wiggins or Isaiah Joe, right? Guys who are in terms of dynasty ranks, maybe early 200s, 220, something like that, where it's like, okay, these guys are kind of useful, but they're not really much more than what they are, and they'll have nights where they pop off. And I think McCain is good enough for that. So I guess that's my counter to your counter, Mark.
Yeah. The one point I like that you brought up, Brax, is that when it comes to this kind of silly season portion of fantasy, obviously a big attention is played onto the tanking teams who are just going to play these random guys or guys that were buried on the rotation just to continue to try to lose games, or, some second rounders get a chance to kind of see what you got. The inverse can kind of happen in regards to the really best teams, the teams that are, far and away, like running away with the number one seed. Like this happened a lot like 2-3 years ago with the Boston Celtics, where fantasy playoff time, Pritchard became a monster, Sam Hauser became a monster. Obviously, they're more integrated into the offense now, but back when Boston was even more stacked, that was really those guys' time to shine. We saw that a little bit with OKC last year. Once AJ Mitchell came back from injury, he was kind of like piloting the team at the end of the year when they rested everybody for playoffs. So that might happen with Jared McCain here. Let's go to you first, Mark. Speculative hold, wait and see, not interested, maybe buying Jared McCain stocks. Where are you at?
I'd probably say a hold / a sell. If someone thinks this is now, the Thunder believe in McCain, then that means we should be believing McCain. I wouldn't go that far. So kind of more of that hold / mild sell territory here.
How about you, Brax?
I like McCain as a buy here. I think his value is in the gutter, and I think if somebody was concerned about him on Philly, I think they'll be even more concerned about him on OKC. And for the reasons I outlined before, I like him in OKC. So I'm buying McCain.
I'll go with you on this one, Brax. We'll give Jared McCain the green light only because I really can't imagine the price being high, because like even if there's a name value, getting into the conversation, that's one thing. But like, what's the owner really going to argue with of like, oh, he's going to, beat out so-and-so for playing time in OKC? Like it's the point will always go against the owner of how stacked OKC is. So I just can't imagine him costing that much. I see this as a low risk move for someone who's still got at least a somewhat positive outlook here, especially being on a team that's better at developing prospects. All right. So we don't want to keep you guys too long. We're going to move on. We got two more to discuss, two more important ones. We're going to leave off a couple here, but maybe we'll very quickly, briefly mention them at the end because I don't know how great their outlook was looking in the first place. But these next two is a little more up for debate. The Golden State Jonathan Kuminga saga is over. He's now in Atlanta. But boys, my question, of course, is Atlanta a better situation or not? It's not necessarily like Atlanta was super thin at the position that Kuminga plays. So it brings the question of like, yes, obviously the relationship in Golden State was so bad, and there's people who believe in Kuminga in value of, a scorer, maybe providing a little bit of defense there. But let's go to you first, Braxton. Is Atlanta actually better for Jonathan Kuminga or not?
I guess. I mean, purely because it's not Golden State. Mark, I remember we've had pretty extended conversations about Kuminga in the past and just how terrible I think he is as a fantasy asset. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess if you want to chalk it up to Steve Kerr being the issue in Golden State, okay, maybe there's some outlook here or a positive outlook for him in Atlanta. But if he couldn't crack the rotation in Golden State, making the money that he did with Golden State down the players that they were at various points in the season, what is there to talk about here? I mean, Kuminga is one of the most perpetually overvalued players in fantasy basketball. And I'm not going to spend a long time talking about this because I've made my thoughts on Kuminga very clear. I've made numerous videos on him. And we've talked about him on multiple podcasts, just how terrible I think he is. He helps you nowhere, even at his peak, and he needs to completely revamp his fantasy game to be a positive contributor for your fantasy team. Don't look at the point total and be like, oh, it's big number. He's not helping you. Like, he's hurting you in other areas. If you want to try, I think he's a massive sell right now. If somebody thinks the Atlanta spot now in a points league, that's a different conversation. Because he's more useful in a points league if you're just kind of racking up counting stats. But 9 category leagues, actively harmful. I think he sucks. I don't think he's a good real basketball player. I don't think he's a good fantasy player. You should sell, if you own him, you should sell him to somebody who actually likes him.
But how do you really feel?
Well, let's ask you that, Mark. How do you really feel about Jonathan Kuminga?
Yeah, with Braxton, I don't really think he does anything great on the court. I do think his scoring is actually he's actually good at self-scoring to a certain degree, as it's more
pointers.
Well, it's scoring. It's better than some players.
I guess.
I think he's good at least getting to the foul line and kind of racking up points. Maybe not in a manner that's effective for teams, kind of in the same way Cam Thomas is effective at getting points. It's like, yeah, but do you really want that? Do you really want that on your team?
Now we got Cam Thomas roped into this, huh?
I mean, tell me I'm wrong. You can't. So
all right, I know.
But we also said at the beginning, it's literally can't get worse than what it was in Golden State, where, I mean, one, his attitude wasn't the greatest. I mean, he literally, when a night when a lot of Warriors were out and they're like, hey, Kuminga, you want to play? He was available, and then an hour before the game, he showed up as questionable with a back injury and ended up not playing. It's like, yeah, okay. That back injury just cropped up an hour before. I was blurbing that night, and I see that injury come up. I'm like, this is the BS alarm's going off here.
Yep.
But look, it can't get worse. Atlanta should probably at least see what they have in him. So there's that room. Ricochet hasn't exactly impressed there at all. So maybe there's some spot for him. But you are buying more, I think, into the situation changing and not being as toxic as it was in Golden State more than the player of Kuminga, which is always tricky if you're buying more into the situation rather than the player itself. You much rather buy into the player than hoping the situation helps things.
Can I say something else? I just want to add more. You're hoping he turns, not you, Mark, but as the owner, you are hoping he turns into Aaron Gordon. Okay, that is the best case scenario. And he does not get valued that way. He gets valued like he's some budding superstar, where in reality, he needs to take and make more three-pointers and increase his efficiency significantly to even reach close to fantasy relevancy, right? Aaron Gordon is what Jonathan Kuminga wishes he was. And he's too selfish on the court. He's not good enough at anything to be Aaron Gordon. And I'm so tired of talking about Jonathan Kuminga. I can't believe people still value him in fantasy leagues. It's unbelievable to me.
So I was going to have you vote first, but I think I'm going to skip your vote. I'm going to go to my vote, and I'm going to stick with what I did in my personal ranks for our most recent rank update. I do have Zachary Ricochet still above Kuminga. I also personally have Asa Newell above Kuminga too. I still like him as a prospect. I think he's probably going to turn out to be better. So I am not interested in Jonathan Kuminga. Where are you at with this, Mark? Interest, hold, potential buy, or no interest?
It sounds like I'm not going to have fans of this decision, but I'm going to say slight buy. Although I do think if the manager who rosters Kuminga's at this point is probably a Kuminga believer, so it's going to be hard to trade for him, and that's probably the larger issue there.
That's another aspect too, is like people either are really in on him or they think he's awful, and he's almost all name value right now, right? So Andrew, you mentioned our ranks. Like my rank is still somewhat okay on him, and it's purely because of kind of his perceived value, right? Not somebody I would ever trade for, but like ranking him, I believe I think it's like in the 170s or 180s or something like that. It's because players in that range are probably adequate in terms of what you get in trade for him. So that's a kind of weird aspect that you see with him. You don't see that a lot with a lot of other players. It's a weird player and mess.
So unfortunately in this situation, majority rules. He does get the red light of shame here, but maybe if you're a big fan, you could pretend that this is red for the Atlanta Hawks instead of the red light of shame.
Oh,
so
that's good.
I can't believe now I'm going to be like memorialized now as the Kuminga believer now. I don't
well, if Mitchell was here, he might be helping you a little bit actually. So we'll give you some slack there. You might have somebody else on your side, but we'll move on from Kuminga now. Braxton doesn't want to talk about him anymore, and I don't blame him. All right, this last one. So this is the last one we'll go into full discussion on. We had 3 others besides this last one. Maybe what we'll do is just skip straight to voting for them and not really get into it. But this last guy we do need to talk about a little bit because this is tough. Scoot Henderson was viewed as a generational prospect. Obviously, he was still outshined by Wembanyama, who is a generational prospect. There's generations upon generations and additional generations involved until we see Victor Wembanyama. But Scoot kind of had that appeal as well. And I mean, obviously the title of today is struggling former top 20 picks. And yes, there is struggling from a playing standpoint, but obviously the big struggle here is injuries. Not really staying on the court too much for Portland, but even when he was playing, it's been a tough situation for Scoot Henderson in general. Now, the numbers, like, at least above 12 points per night, around like 5 or so assists per game. So getting some assists obviously is always good. Steals are meh, not bad, but not great either. And he's shooting most recently 35% from three. So also not amazing, but not terrible either. 41% from the field, though. So with Scoot Henderson, if you're Portland, so talking from a real life perspective, not a dynasty manager, I mean, you might as well just continue to see what you have here, especially if he's going to be under the tutelage of somebody like Jrue Holiday and then soon to be Damian Lillard. But Portland does look at least like a little bit more competitive with, now Denny Avdia being there. Shaedon Sharpe has kind of stepped up a bit too recently. And so, like, let's say and obviously, like, Donovan Clingan's really blossoming into the role that we expected him to have too. So let's say next year they're starting to get a little bit more competitive. They're maybe closer to a play-in team or, an 8 seed or something like that. Is there a situation where they're maybe relying more on Jrue Holiday and Damian Lillard because they're playing more winning basketball? Is that a possibility? Let's go to you first, Mark. Where are you at on Scoot Henderson right now?
It's just such a shame that he had this injury at the beginning of the season, which has pretty much sapped this entire year for him, because there was a chance for him to show up, produce, and maybe take that extra step forward. It's been a pretty injury muddled career for him so far, but I think he was starting to show some signs of getting used to the rhythm, getting used to the pace, being a great distributor. Efficiency, yes, efficiency is still sketchy, but being a great distributor and adding something defensively. Now, that profile is much different than when he came into the league, but he was showing signs of being like kind of a Chris Dunn plus player, kind of, but like Chris Dunn supercharged, I think, which, it's not the same billing that he had, not the same billing when everyone was saying the Hornets are crazy for taking Brandon Miller over him, which, hey, you know what? Props to them. Looks like a decent decision now, maybe due to injuries, but looks like a pretty good decition.
Oh, it's more than just injuries, Mark. Come on, give him that. Come on, give him Brandon Miller. That's crazy.
If we were to hit the restart button and injuries didn't hit, it could look different.
Regardless, you can't even give him Brandon Miller over Scoot. That's crazy. Sorry, go ahead.
We'll talk offline. No, so I mean, the thing is with injuries, though, these injuries are sapping a lot of his athleticism. I think they are sapping some of that juice he had, and so it's a different profile for Scoot you're looking at. If you're looking at him and viewing him as more of a, I think, useful defensive guard you can distribute well, okay, that profile is fine. It's not the greatest. If you're still looking at him as someone who could be this impactful scorer and slash into the paint and really spray the ball out and get a high assist and decent points, or like kind of like a John Morantish skill set or fantasy skill set rather, I think that outcome is a lot less likely now. And this is mainly the injuries, unfortunately, for him. And with Jrue Holiday there and some others there, is he going to have those same reps and opportunities? Or if the Blazers are trying to win next season, they have to keep him in more. You don't get development minutes anymore. I don't think he has the chance for development minutes anymore, at least on this Blazers team.
Very good. Braxton, where are you at with Scoot?
Yeah, what I think is interesting is that he's pretty blocked in the short term with Jrue Holiday and Damian Lillard, like you guys mentioned. I think, Mark, I completely agree with your take. I think he was profiling as like a Darius Garland or a Ja Morant type point guard, right? He's not going to be the number one option, but maybe he's the number two option. Or I guess Ja Morant was the number one option on some nights, but like maybe Garland is more appropriate comparison of what I'm trying to say here. But anyways, I don't know if that's in the cards for Scoot anymore, especially with the breakout of Denny Avdia, who's just completely taken over this Portland team, and he's not really going to relinquish his hold on the number one option. Scoot in his first year looked really, really bad. The turnovers are really bad. The field goal percentage is really bad. But the fantasy, upside, or I guess the idea of him is there, points and assists and a little bit of steals. The hard part for him is going to be making sure the field goal percentage is not so bad that it tanks you completely. And then the turnovers cannot be anywhere near 3. His assists are going to have to be closer to like 7 or 8 to be able to stomach that many turnovers for him, especially due to his or because of some of his shortcomings elsewhere. You'd like to see more 3-pointers from him. You'd like to see a higher field goal percentage for him. It's just kind of a really gross skill set. I think it's obvious what it can turn into, but I kind of think of it similar to RJ Barrett when he was on the Knicks, where it's just like the raw numbers look okay on some nights, but when you really drill down and see what he's doing for you versus how he's hurting you, it's tough to weigh, right? But with using the RJ Barrett example, in Toronto, he's been a much more palatable or easier to stomach as a fantasy asset, right? He's taking better shots. He's turning the ball over slightly less, right? So if Scoot can kind of, I don't know if that, just to pair, I guess what you said, Mark, I don't know if that number one option, ball dominant guard is in the cards for him anymore. He is making his debut tonight as of recording. So it'll be interesting to see how some of those minutes get split up when he's fully up to speed with him and Drew Holiday and Caleb Love, who's in the mix now as well. I mean, who's to say that Caleb Love isn't take some minutes away from Scoot Henderson? Caleb Love has showed more than Scoot has, I think, in his entire career this year. So I'll just say, in terms of contributing to winning basketball, Scoot's good at putting up stats and losing, but Caleb Love is out there knocking down shots for a competitive Portland team. So I'd like to see. I'm interested to see what Scoot does, but I've never really been a big Scoot believer. So
yeah, I mean, it seems like they were planning for him to come back around this time because Caleb Love has not received that contract conversion yet. So perhaps it happens at some point. I think Vit Krejci coming in might impact that happening, but we'll see what happens with Love. But he's someone I could definitely see getting a standard deal over the summer if he doesn't end up getting one this year. So let's put it to a vote. I'm not interested in buying Scoot Henderson, but if I had him, I would hold him, hoping maybe he's more of like a second contract player. So that's where I'm at right now, is a pretty strong hold. I wouldn't really be interested in selling him because I don't think you're going to get the value of what you probably should get. Where are you at on a vote here with Scoot, Mark? Buying, holding, not interested?
Pretty much, as you said, firm hold for me.
How about you, Brax?
I would actually sell to an owner who looks at the assists and their eyes go wide. Oh my God, somebody who averages over 5 assists per game. I think he's somebody who's going to hurt you more than he helps you. I guess you wait for it. You not right this second, right? But you wait for him to kind of string together some games and then maybe cash in on something. All right, so it's going to hurt you that bad.
I gave him the red on accident. He's got the yellow light then. Firm hold for now. Potential sell high opportunity if he does string together some good games at the end of this Blazers season. We're going to quickly rattle off these next 3 names. We're just going to go straight to votes for them and not get too deep into it. Former Flamethrower national champion Jordan Hawkins. I am not interested in Dynasty at this moment in time. Braxton, your vote.
No.
Mark, your vote.
No.
All right. Two very firm no's. Red light of shame. Next up, who was I missing here? Just Jordan Hawk. Oh, former Houston Rocket Cam Whitmore. I know he has been playing a little bit on the Wizards. I'm personally not interested. Mark, where are you at with your former Rocket?
Out for the season with, I think it was deep DVT, deep vein thrombosis. So it didn't really get much of a chance and show much on the Wizards. He was the same player. No.
Braxton.
I agree that no, I guess. No.
Back-to-back red lights of shame then for Jordan Hawkins and Cam Whitmore. Last one, a little more up for debate. Trae Young is now in town for the Washington Wizards. Where do we stand on Bub Carrington? I'm teetering between hold and not interested because I know the fantasy game isn't super pretty, but at least right now he's playing a lot. So that kind of obviously has to come into, context here. But the Wizards are kind of doing some weird things right now. Like Sharif Cooper just played a ton last night. Since when does Sharif Cooper play a ton of
It's Sharif Cooper. It's our time. It's our time.
It's finally time, baby. I knew it. So with Bub Carrington, maybe a hold, although I'm not too enthused. Braxton?
There could be some utility as a backup point guard. I love my low end, small point guard, backup point guard type guys, Andrew. So
okay,
could be a buy low for Bob. Not that I think he's gonna pop off, but if somebody's completely disinterested the Trae Young thing. I think there could be some Jose Alvarado, Chris Dunn, not that they're the same player, but like that tier of point guard for Bub.
Very good. Mark, where you at with Bub?
Similar mindset to Braxton here. Hold as kind of a first guard off the bench combo guard role who can maybe moonlight some point guard duties here and there, and maybe have some off-ball shooting moments too.
All right, so we'll end this one at least on a neutral note with the yellow hold. So only 2 greens discussed today: Bennedict Mathurin and Jared McCain. Some strong holds we still have for Scoot Henderson, Jeremy Sochan, Taylor Hendricks, and Bub Carrington. Oh, Tidjane Salaun as well. No further interest in Dalton Knecht, Jordan Hawkins, Cam Whitmore, Jonathan Kuminga, and Devin Carter. That will do it for us today with our podcast, but we are going to be on Mark's podcast next week. Mark, tell us where you can find that podcast as well as all of your work and content.
Yeah, as mentioned, I'm going to have you all on guesting next week. We'll kind of talk more about the trade deadlines. You'll have some games to see. Maybe things have already shaken up. They're excited for that pod. That will be on the Pun Intended podcast. Drops every Monday. So that will drop about a week and a half from now-ish, next week, that time frame. Otherwise, drop the Pun Intended podcast weekly on Mondays. And then I have an article coming out at sportsethos.com basically discussing biggest trade deadline, dynasty winners or losers. So be on the lookout for that. That'll be in about a week or so, or this upcoming Wednesday. And otherwise, you can find me over at Bluesky at Mark C. Sports Ethos, and then Dynasty Ratings and Rankings over at SportsEthos.com.
Very, very good. All right. Well, looking forward to continuing this fun Dynasty conversation with you next week. Like and subscribe if you are new. We are still on the road to 500 subscribers, and we are very, very close. So perhaps you guys can get us over that final push here. But thank you for tuning in today, and we'll see you all next time.